Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca Virginia, and today I'm going to be sharing with you my first brand new fall DIYs for 2023. Starting off, I have been really enjoying making different wreaths for the different seasons and holidays, and fall was no exception, so I wanted to try my hand at this ribbon wreath. Before I started, I did this off screen. I took 5 different kinds of ribbons and I cut 18 pieces of them, each measuring 8 inches in length. Each of my, I will call them bunches for the sake in this video, each of my ribbon bunches are only going to have 4 ribbons. The reason why is this ribbon that is the brown plaid and kind of has a sheen to it, I only had 8 of, and same with the black and white buffalo check. I had 10 of those, so I didn't have 18 pieces of each, so I will be alternating between the black and white buffalo check and that shinier pattern. To create your bunch, you are just going to pinch the ribbon in at the center and make pretty much an X formation and then crisscross the ribbons so each of them can be shown. It doesn't really matter if you can't see them perfectly. All of my ribbons are wired, so I can manipulate them and pull them around after I have tied them. I decided to use jute. In the past, I have used zip ties, but wanted to keep it with a rustic look, especially because I felt like you could see the jute a tiny bit when I did put the wreath together. So rather than a zip tie, I'm just tying it with some jute and leaving the tails on because that's what we'll be using to attach the wreath later on. Here you can see that I am pulling apart my ribbons and kind of fanning them out. The great thing about wired ribbons is you're able to do this. Also, all of my ribbons were double-sided, so I didn't have to be particular about which side of the ribbon was showing, and that's why I decided to dovetail the ribbon ends once I already had my bunch together, already knew what lengths that I wanted it to be. You could definitely do this part when you're putting all of your ribbons together like I did and cutting them. You could dovetail every single piece, but I kind of like to decide which ribbons I want to be shorter or which ones I want to be longer, so I prefer to leave any cutting until the end, but this is definitely a step that you could take in the beginning. You don't have to wait until your bunch is already all tied together. I'm going to show you the process of making a ribbon bunch one more time, sped up a little bit. We'll be using the black and white buffalo check in this one. I'm cinching in the 2 ribbon pieces and making that X formation. Then I went in with the burlap and filled in the empty space, and there's a really pretty green and orange plaid I have at the top. To secure everything, I am grabbing a piece of jute, which I didn't have ready. Make sure you have them ready. But once I cut that, I was able to tie it together to keep my ribbon bunch from moving around. And I did a double knot. You can see in this one, the ribbons kind of all slid together, which again is not a problem when you're using wired ribbon. It's really easy to pull them apart and fan them out. Last step is dovetailing. How I do it is I fold my ribbon in half and then I cut towards and up at the folded section, and that gives me a really nice even dovetail. I made a ton more of these off camera. I put on a show. It took me about 30 minutes. I was taking my time, enjoying myself, and when I was completed, I had a bunch of these ribbon bunches, and I'll show you in the next clip how to put these onto your Dollar Tree wreath. There are 6 sections to this wreath. You can see them marked out by the vertical wire marks in the wreath, and I'm going to be placing 3 ribbon bunches per each of those dedicated sections. The first ribbon bunch that I place down, I place it directly onto that vertical bar, and I tie it around that vertical bar. This keeps the ribbon bunch very nicely in place. Then for the other 2 bunches that I add to the dedicated section, they will be a little bit looser. When I tie them through, I double knot them, but because they don't have that crossbar to be tied to, they will slide around a little bit more. But once we place in the ribbon in the next section on that crossbar, it will keep everything in place. You can definitely add more ribbon bunches than just 3, depending on how full you want your wreath to be. 3 is just what I found to work best, and then you can fill in any of the sparse areas with maybe 1 or 2 extra ribbon bunches. I'm also tying all of the ribbon bunches on the 3rd ring in this wreath, so the second closest one to the outside of the wreath. I fast forwarded through a little bit of the ribbon adding to the wreath form because I'm just doing the same thing over and over again. But you can see our wreath really starting to take shape. I love how big and full it is. I always think the Dollar Tree comes out with great ribbon, but this orange and green plaid I didn't see in my stores last year. You'll have to let me know in the comments down below if you have this ribbon in stock at your stores or any other kinds, because I think it makes for the perfect fall wreath. As a centerpiece in this wreath, I have seen all over Pinterest people taking Dollar Tree fall signs and putting them in the center. My stores only had really tiny signs or really giant signs, so none of those were really going to work for this wreath, but I did find in the crafting section this gorgeous orange beaded pumpkin that I thought would make the absolute perfect centerpiece to the wreath. To attach that to the wreath, it came with a jute hanger, so I just cut it in two, and then with the pieces of jute, I tied them on some of those crossbars that are on the back of the wire wreath form. I absolutely love the way this turned out. I am definitely becoming a wreath fan. I've done them for a couple of different seasons this year, and I'm having a lot of fun exploring different ways to make wreaths. Next up, I'm going to show you how to transform 3 wood pieces from the Dollar Tree into a larger pumpkin. The Dollar Tree comes out with these smaller wood pumpkins every single year, at least that I've been shopping at the Dollar Tree, which has been a lot in the last 5 years. I sanded off the glitter words, painted them white, and distressed them using some gray paint. The kind I used is called Elephant by Waverly. To make the 3 smaller pumpkins into a larger one, I am stacking them 2 in the back and 1 in the front. You could also do 1 in the back if you really want it to be extra dimensional, but I only had 3, so that's what I'm doing. The stems popped off super easily. Of course, we only want 1 stem for our pumpkin, not 3, and I'm going to be using a cinnamon stick later to achieve that. Next up, it was time to decorate my pumpkin. I started off with this orange bow, which you'll see me actually move away from in a little bit. I also wanted some extra tails of ribbons. I really like this orange gingham pattern. I think it looks very farmhouse, but especially for fall with the orange. And I went away from the orange bow and decided to go, again, more of that farmhouse route, just with a burlap bow, but I'm still going to be using that orange plaid. I hot glued those down, and then I went in with the leaf. I just chose 1 and I popped it off of a floral pick that I already had from the Dollar Tree before securing down the burlap bow on top. Also, I just realized I forgot to include it, but like I mentioned earlier, for the stem, I chose to use a cinnamon stick. I know you can find them at Hobby Lobby and other craft stores, but I always pick mine up from the grocery store. If you go in the seasoning section, you will find cinnamon, and I always find a good deal there on quite a good amount of cinnamon sticks. This DIY may look a little bit complicated, but I think it's probably the easiest one in the entire video, but definitely packs a big punch and looks like something that you would pick up at Kirkland's or Home Goods. All of the items that I actually used in this DIY were from last year, so I bet a lot of the stuff you already have in your craft stash. I got this stand from the Dollar Tree last year and the pumpkin from the Dollar Spot section for $5. And in between the pumpkin and the stand, I just placed a block of floral foam, also from the Dollar Tree, that I had in my stash. And then the rest is up to you. You can hot glue it down to make sure that nothing moves about, and then it's completely up to your own artistic ideas with how you want to arrange the florals in this DIY. Whenever I'm arranging flowers, especially fake ones, I go for a thriller, a spiller, and a filler. So the thriller is the flower that's pretty much the focal point, which is that burlap daisy. The filler is everything that's going to fill in this space, which is the yellow and orange mums. And then the spiller is some flowers that are spilling down, which are those smaller floral picks. The Dollar Tree had wood round ornaments in their Crafters Square section a couple of months ago, and if I ever see these again, I'm definitely going to pick up a couple of packs because I love using them for different seasons and holidays. For this case, we're going to be turning them into pumpkins. Rather than just completely paint the wood orange, I wanted to do a little bit more of a stain, so I'm using orange and a good amount of water to just dilute the paint down a bit so it's more of a stain. And I did add in a little bit of my brown stain. It's called Antique by Waverly, to just kind of dirty everything up and make it look more like a pumpkin that has been hanging out in the pumpkin patch. Now it's time to add some bows. I'm going to do a quick bow tutorial with you guys on how I make my double loop bows. So you're going to start off with your fingers in a V, and you're going to place the ribbon over the top, then weave it in between your fingers and back one more time. This time when you bring it back, you're going to pull it through behind, and that little space where the crook of your fingers are, you're going to tuck the ribbon down in that and pull it through, and you'll see a little loop has started to form. You're going to use that loop to make a knot. So you're gonna put that behind and pull snug to create that knot, and you can see your bow is forming and the tails. Now, while it's still on your fingers, you can kind of mess around with it, either make the bow larger or make it smaller, depending on what kind of project that you are doing. Then once you like how everything is, you can just slide it off your fingers. You will have the double bows, and you can cut your tails however way you like them. You can also do this with thicker ribbon. You're going to do the same thing. The V, pull the ribbon over top of your two fingers, slide it in between the two. Because it's larger ribbon, you're going to tuck it behind that first piece. Again, weave it back, under, and over. This time, you're not going to go over, just stay under. And it'll be harder to see that little space in the crook of your fingers, but you're going to kind of poke it where it is and push that ribbon through. Then once you pull that, again, you'll start to see your knot taking shape as you pull it behind. So you're gonna grab that little piece and tuck it under to make the knot and pull nice and snug. And just like our other ones, you can adjust the bow however you would like to change the size of it. And then once you're ready, go ahead and slide it off your fingers, and you have a perfect double bow. All that you need to do is cut the tails. After I hot glued the bows onto the pumpkins, I wasn't sure what I wanted to use as the stems. I had these wood slices that I picked up in the Crafter Square, which I did like, and it went with the wood theme, but I did worry that our more caramel colored bow was a little bit too big and maybe you wouldn't see the wood slice. So I ended up going with those trusty cinnamon sticks again. They always work perfect for a pumpkin stem. Next up is probably the easiest DIY. I think I said the one 2 ago was the easiest, but this one probably is, because all you really have to do is put some Dollar Tree flowers into Dollar Tree vases. These vases are iced coffee bottles that I got from the Dollar Tree. I painted them white, dirtied them up a little bit with some dark brown paint, and then wrapped jute around the top of them. Next, I grabbed 3 different colored mums. We have a berry color, more of an orange, and a yellow, and I'm tucking those down into the iced coffee bottles. The last step, I wanted to add a little bit more of a rustic touch. I feel like fall is very rustic, you know, farm, hay bales, pumpkin patches, all of that. So I grabbed, it's not quite jute, it's a little bit thicker. It's like some brown yarn that I picked up off Amazon. I'll have it linked down below. And I just made 3 very simple bows and then hot glued those onto the front of our iced coffee bottles. I have this sitting on my dining room table. It looks beautiful at the center of the table, and nobody would know that it only cost me $6. Thanks so much for watching. I'll have a brand new fall DIY video next week. Until then, keep searching, keep creating.